Hello, hello. Well, I'd like to welcome you to the first of a series on market structure. So if you notice, our standard has changed. In the past, we have been talking about business structures. Now we're talking about something called market structures. So here are our LEQs. What are the 5 conditions of perfect competition, and what is the best example of perfect competition? And finally, how does perfect competition benefit society? So before we get directly into our LEQs, we need to do an overview. So what is a market structure? Now first, I want you guys to recall what a business structure is. We are now talking about something that's much more large scale. If you think about America's mixed market economy, within the umbrella of America's mixed market economy, there are many different business organizations. Some of them are sole proprietorships, some of the rich ones are corporations, we have partnerships, we have franchises. So underneath the umbrella of America's mixed market economic system, we have many different business structures operating. Okay, well, just above the level of business structures, we have something called market structures. So a market structure is the extent to which competition prevails in particular markets. It's the extent to which competition prevails in particular markets. Now, one word I need you guys to know verbatim by definition is competition. There's 2 things I want you to know about competition. It's a rivalry amongst sellers trying to achieve such goals as increasing profits, the market share, and sales volume, aka making money. And is the effort of 2 or more parties acting independently to secure the business of a third party by offering the most favorable items. So I can rephrase as the effort of 2 or more businesses trying to get the customer to buy their stuff. Now, here's a visual that kind of helps you guys visualize where market structure is at on this hierarchy. So there are 4 types of market structures. In this video, we're talking about perfect competition. Now, in our prior video series, we talked about business structures. So looking from the bottom to the top, each of the 4 different business structures can operate within a different market structure. For example, I could have a sole proprietorship that operates in a perfectly competitive market. I could have a sole proprietorship that operates in a monopolistically competitive market. Now, in theory, I could have a sole proprietorship that's an oligopoly and a monopoly. In practice, that's very rare. Most oligopolies and monopolies are, in fact, corporations. I could have a franchise that operates in a monopolistically competitive market. I could have a partnership that operates in a market that's perfect competition, so on and so forth. So in theory, all these different combinations could happen. I could have a sole proprietorship in all 4 of these. I could have a partnership in all 4 of these, so on and so forth. But in practice, corporations are most common among oligopolies and monopolies. Sole proprietorships are most common in perfect competition and monopolistically competitive markets. So let's get into what perfect competition is. So perfect competition is a market situation. Remember, guys, when I talk about market structure, all I'm talking about is the extent to which competition prevails in the market, aka how competitive is the marketplace. All right. So perfect competition is a market situation in which there are numerous buyers and sellers. Then no single buyer can affect price. Now that last sentence there is going to be important here in a few homework videos. So the 5 conditions of perfect competition are as follows: a large market, similar product, easy entry and exit, easily attainable information, and independence. Let's knock them out. So a large market is just that. That means there are numerous buyers and sellers must exist for the good or service. Now, on a lot of these examples, you can see pictures of agriculture. I'm going to share with you why at the end of the video. So a large market is simply there are tons and tons and tons of options for the consumers. The cell phone industry is not an example of a large market. I mean, think about it, guys. There's only 4, 5, maybe 6 big cell phone manufacturers. Our service providers, we have Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile, and maybe Metro, if that even counts. That's not a large market. A large market is something when there's hundreds, if not thousands, of different firms in the exact same industry. A similar product. So remember, guys, these are all conditions of perfect competition. For a market to be considered perfectly competitive, we must have a large market and a similar product. A similar product simply means the good or service being sold must be nearly identical. So a tomato is a tomato regardless of which farm you get it from. Hollister and Abercrombie, they both sell certain types of clothing, and people may argue what their tastes and preferences are, but in reality they are selling a similar product. And then the good old rivalry between Apple and Android. We have our preferences, but they are still selling a similar product. Easy entry and exit. This is the one students tend to have the most trouble with. So easy entry and exit means it is easy for an individual that is an entrepreneur or a sole proprietor to open up a business and be successful. When it comes to the cell phone industry, Joe the plumber off the street or Mr. Jarrett could not go to a bank and take out a loan and say, hey, I want to start my own cell phone business. They are going to laugh at you, and no one in their right mind is going to give you money to do that. However, if I said I want to open up Jarrett's juice bar or a coffee shop or a restaurant, my odds of success are much more high. So the third characteristic of perfect competition is that we must have easy entry and exit. Moving on. The fourth characteristic of perfect competition is that you must have easily obtainable information. For example, if I were to start a cell phone company, where would I even begin? Would I Google search how to make your own cell phone company? I would encourage you guys to do that and see what comes up. You're probably not going to find too much good information because it's just so large. However, if I were to Google search how to start your own restaurant or how to start your own juice bar or your own small gym, that stuff is easy to find. There is easily obtainable information. I can research what's the best price to charge. I can easily find the factors of production I need. These are all characteristics of perfect competition. And finally, we have something called independence. That means that in a perfectly competitive market, two or more businesses can't come together and adjust prices. This is something called price colluding, which we will be talking about in a few homework videos, and it is illegal. But for now, that's all I need you to know about independence. We're getting that one later. Now, what is the perfect example of perfect competition? The perfect example of perfect competition, and it is agriculture, and here's why. If there is one industry in the entire world that is still perfectly competitive, it is agriculture. Now, if you guys remember, the free market system is pretty much non-existent. It's an idea we strive for. Like, America is a mixed market economy. Perfect competition is also an idea. It's something we strive for. The closer a market structure is to perfectly competitive, the better it is for consumers. And really the only thing we have left that can be considered perfectly competitive is agriculture. Now I want you guys to recall that for a market to be perfectly competitive, it must meet all 5 characteristics. For example, a cell phone industry, think about Verizon, Sprint, AT&T, they sell a similar product, and that's about it. The other 4 of those are a little bit more difficult for the cell phone industry to meet. So let's talk about agriculture. So it is for these 5 reasons that agriculture is a perfect example of perfect competition. Now our final LEQ, how does perfect competition benefit society? Remember class, as consumers, as demanders, we love competition. Competition forces prices down, and it also leads to economic efficiency. When businesses compete for a business, they are working relentlessly to produce a better product, which allows us to get better goods and services. And finally, for LEQ and review, the 5 conditions necessary for perfect competition are a large market, a similar product, easy entry and exit, easily attainable information, and independence. And number 2, how does perfect competition benefit society? Well, it is because competition keeps prices down and forces economic efficiency if the business is to survive. Thank you all for watching this video. I am looking forward to seeing you on tomorrow night's homework video.